War and Peace, Book 6, Chapter 23. Read for LibriVox.org by Eva Harnick. Prince Andrew needed his father's consent to his marriage, and to obtain this he started for the country next day. His father received his son's communication with external composure but inward wrath. He could not comprehend how anyone could wish to alter his life or introduce anything new into it, when his own life was already ending. "If only they would let me end my days as I want to," thought the old man, "then they might do as they please." With his son, however, he employed the diplomacy he reserved for important occasions, and, adopting a quiet tone, discussed the whole matter. In the first place, the marriage was not a brilliant one as regards birth, wealth, or rank. Secondly, Prince Andrew was no longer as young as he had been, and his health was poor. The old man laid special stress on this, while she was very young. Thirdly, he had a son whom it would be a pity to entrust to a chit of a girl. Fourthly, and finally, the father said, looking ironically at his son, "I beg you to put it off for a year. Go abroad, take a cure, look out, as you wanted to, for a German tutor for Prince Nicholas. Then, if your love or passion or obstinacy, as you please, is still as great, marry. And that is my last word on it. Mind, the last," concluded the prince in a tone which showed that nothing would make him alter his decision. Prince Andrew saw clearly that the old man hoped that his feelings, or his fiancée's, would not stand a year's test, or that he, the old prince himself, would die before then, and he decided to conform to his father's wish to propose and postpone the wedding for a year. 3 weeks after the last evening he had spent with the Rostóvs, Prince Andrew returned to Petersburg. Next day, after her talk with her mother, Natásha expected Bolkónski all day, but he did not come. On the second and third day it was the same. Pierre did not come either, and Natásha, not knowing that Prince Andrew had gone to see his father, could not explain his absence to herself. 3 weeks passed in this way. Natásha had no desire to go out anywhere, and wandered from room to room like a shadow, idle and listless. She wept secretly at night, and did not go to her mother in the evenings. She blushed continually and was irritable. It seemed to her that everybody knew about her disappointment and was laughing at her and pitying her. Strong as was her inward grief, this wound to her vanity intensified her misery. Once she came to her mother, tried to say something, and suddenly began to cry. Her tears were those of an offended child who does not know why it is being punished. The countess began to soothe Natásha, who, after first listening to her mother's words, suddenly interrupted her. "Leave off, Mamma. I don't want to think about it. He just came and then left off. Left off!" Her voice trembled, and she again nearly cried, but recovered and went on quietly. "And I don't at all want to get married, and I am afraid of him. I have now become quite calm, quite calm." The day after this conversation, Natásha put on the old dress which she knew had the peculiar property of conducing to cheerfulness in the mornings, and that day she returned to the old way of life which she had abandoned since the ball. Having finished her morning tea, she went to the ballroom, which she particularly liked for its loud resonance, and began singing her solfeggio. When she had finished her first exercise, she stood still in the middle of the room and sang a musical phrase that particularly pleased her. She listened joyfully, as though she had not expected it, to the charm of the notes reverberating, filling the whole empty ballroom, and slowly dying away. And all at once she felt cheerful. "What is the good of making so much of it? Things are nice as it is," she said to herself, and she began walking up and down the room, not stepping simply on the resounding parquet, but treading with each step from the heel to the toe (she had on a new and favorite pair of shoes), and listening to the regular tap of the heel and the creak of the toe as gladly as she had to the sounds of her own voice. Passing a mirror, she glanced into it. "There, that is me," the expression of her face seemed to say as she caught sight of herself. "Well, and very nice too. I need nobody." A footman wanted to come in to clear away something in the room, but she would not let him, and having closed the door behind him, continued her walk. That morning she had returned to her favorite mood, love of and delight in herself. "How charming that Natásha is!" she said again, speaking as some third collective male person. "Pretty, a good voice, young, and in nobody's way, if only they leave her in peace." But however much they left her in peace, she could not now be at peace, and immediately felt this. In the hall the porch door opened and someone asked, "At home?" and then footsteps were heard. Natásha was looking at the mirror, but did not see herself. She listened to the sounds in the hall. When she saw herself, her face was pale. It was he. She knew this for certain, though she hardly heard his voice through the closed doors. Pale and agitated, Natásha ran into the drawing-room. "Mamma! Bolkónski has come!" she said. "Mamma! It is awful! It is unbearable! I don't want to be tormented. What am I to do?" Before the countess could answer, Prince Andrew entered the room with an agitated and serious face. As soon as he saw Natásha, his face brightened. He kissed the countess's hand and Natásha's and sat down beside the sofa. "It is long since we had the pleasure..." began the countess, but Prince Andrew interrupted her by answering her intended question, obviously in haste to say what he had to. "I have not been to see all this time, because I have been at my father's. I had to talk over a very important matter with him. I only got back last night," he said, glancing at Natásha. "I want to have a talk with you, Countess," he added after a moment's pause. The countess lowered her eyes, sighing deeply. "I am at your disposal," she murmured. Natásha knew that she ought to go away, but was unable to do so. Something gripped her throat, and regardless of manners, she stared straight at Prince Andrew with wide open eyes. "At once? This instant? No, it can't be," she thought. Again he glanced at her, and that glance convinced her that she was not mistaken. Yes, at once, that very instant her fate would be decided.